Good Gateway morning, everyone, and welcome back to Billing Insights,
your favorite podcast
for medical billing. If you are new here, my name is Taylor.
And I'm Anita.
And today we're going to be going over the top 5 coding errors. So starting with number 1, we have upcoding and undercoding.
Now, upcoding refers to when a provider bills a level 99215, for instance, whenever the documentation and the time only supports a level 3. So essentially what they're doing is billing higher than what they should have billed to get more reimbursement.
And then undercoding is the exact opposite. So you should be billing a 3 or 4 or 5, and you're billing a 2, or you're billing a 3 when you should be doing the higher. And that also does cause audits. So we are going to put the nice bell curve on the screen here and show you exactly how you should be coding. So 99211, which is just a nurse visit, that would have hardly any over here on this side, or potentially over here if it's flipped, I'm not sure. And then a 99212 should be just a little bit more. The 99213 should be the highest, and then it goes back down for a 4 and even further down for a 5. So you shouldn't be coding a 99215 for every patient that you see.
You also should not be coding a 99213 for every patient that you see. Some providers actually might do this thinking that they're going to keep themselves from getting into an audit, but having one point where everything is billed at that level will also trigger an audit because they're going to wonder, why aren't you having more of a distribution? You have some patients that are less sick, some patients that are more sick, and your coding should reflect that.
Yes, you don't want a bell triangle. That just shows them that you might not be taking any of the coding that seriously, and you just slap a 3 on there every time. So next on the list would be unbundling. So, for example, the depression screening G0444 for Medicare patients, that bundles in with a G0402. You're welcome to Medicare visit. It also bundles in with G0438, which is you're welcome to Medicare if you missed it within the first year of having Medicare. So that counts as included in that annual wellness visit. You should not be billing them separately. You can only bill the G0444 with the G0439. Another example of unbundling would be when COVID came out and they were doing 87428 for the COVID and flu test. I think some providers weren't sure which COVID code to use and were incorrectly selecting 87428 and billing that with an 87804, which is just a flu test. Now, if 87428 is COVID and flu, you're not doing 2 separate swabs at that point. You shouldn't be charging for the flu twice. You're double dipping. What would have been appropriate is if they billed 87426 for a regular COVID test by itself, and then the 87804 for flu, then doing it separately would be appropriate.
Right. So the most important thing to remember here is that you need to double check what your codes includes. There are a lot of codes throughout the CPT book that a smaller code is combined with or built into a larger code. And so make sure that you're not billing 2 separate codes separately just to get higher reimbursement.
Right. So moving on to number 3 on the common coding errors list, we have modifier misuse. Now it can be something simple like having a left diagnosis code and putting a modifier 50. It can be something else. What's your example?
Modifier 25. If you have an office visit, which we commonly around here call a sick visit, and a procedure done on the same day, if it's not separate and distinct, and those are the 2 words we use most commonly here, separate and distinct, meaning they're completely different, you cannot just slap a 2.5 modifier on it to bypass the NCCI edits just so you can get paid for that office visit.
So a procedure that we could use as an example would be a wart removal. It does have a 10-day global period, so if billed with an office visit, it would get a modifier 25. But if the only thing that you were trying to bill with the office visit was that the patient had warts, that's not separate and distinct. You should only be billing the wart removal.
Right. So just remember that that 2.5 is there to bypass the NCCI edit so that you can get paid for both. But if your evaluation and management that you did for that patient is actually encompassed in what you would normally do for your evaluation as part of the procedure, you didn't do anything extra. You didn't do anything separate. So you shouldn't get paid for two separate things.
Right. So, number 4. Diagnosis and procedure code mismatches.
We have a really funny one for this, which I've actually used in class for years. We had a provider who was giving flu shots, and he was going around to different places doing these flu shots. And he just happened to one day also see a patient for leg pain. So he put his diagnosis reason for giving the flu shot as leg pain on that. Now, obviously, that claim was denied. It would not have been paid because that's not the reason why he gave that flu shot.
Right.
It was not leg pain.
So also be careful whenever you're charting and make sure that you're using the right patient's slip or chart if you're doing it all electronically. So number 5 is using outdated codes. So if you are a practice that uses the Medicare reporting codes a lot, they frequently update those. So there's plenty that you could be using that are outdated. This also works for the diagnosis codes. It's not just outdated CPT codes. So, for example, in October of last year, because it's always October.
It is, every year.
Obesity was one of the codes that ended up getting a lot of extra additional digits, and if your practice management system doesn't update on October 1st when all of the codes come out, then there's a chance that you're going to be sending out a lot of claims and getting rejections or exclusions back from the insurance, like they're not even accepting it into adjudication for processing. They're, before they even look at it, they're just like, something's wrong, and they send it back. You're going to get a lot of those.
So one thing that we do recommend is you have an EHR or a practice management system that updates for you and flags you to tell you through the claim scrubber that you need extra digits, that the CPT code has been deleted, that there's something wrong with your claim so that it will catch those errors. Advanced MD, which is one of the practice management softwares that we use, has a very good claim scrubber, but it also allows you to build in those programs or things to check and balance so that you can catch when things are wrong.
They call them billing rules. So you're able to add additional billing rules to your claim scrubber so that it pops up and you don't just send out the claim.
Right.
It actually, when it's sitting in the claim scrubber with an error, it's unable to leave the system and go to insurance until you fix that error.
And that's really helpful for preventing denials on the front end because it takes a lot of time, money, effort, and staff to go, once a claim has been denied, to figure out what the reason why it was denied and then fix it and then resubmit the claim, which also then slows down payment.
An additional tool that we would recommend you use is AAPC's Codify.
Yes.
And AAPC is the American Academy of Professional Coders. But Codify is kind of similar to a claim scrubber in many ways. But I don't know, I feel like it gives additional details that some claim scrubbers don't unless you set up additional billing rules. So AAPC's Codify will let you know if you might need a modifier. Sometimes it'll tell you, hey, just double check that your patient is female because these codes apply only to female patients and vice versa for male patients.
Or check your age, because if you're doing a wellness exam on a 12-year-old, but you've got a CPT code that only extends to a 4-year-old, it's just going to catch those things for you, which is really nice.
Right. It also tells you if a code's deleted, but you should definitely look into AAPC's Codify and use that. It will help you prevent denials on the front end as well. And just so you know, GMS Learning Academy is an AAPC licensed education provider. So, when you want to learn more about medical billing and coding, or maybe how to start your own medical billing company, or how to even start up your medical practice, you should go to gmslearningacademy.com and find our courses there. Right now, we only have 1 or maybe 2 courses up, but they are all in the works. We're hoping to have more up by March, so stay tuned and utilize those wonderful educational resources.
So, we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about these top 5 common coding errors, and I think we've covered them pretty well. So, what's the biggest billing mistake you've encountered? Share your comments with us in the comment section below.
Yes, and please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We really appreciate your support. Since we are still new here, it'd be really great if you could leave a like or comment or subscribe or share. And until next time, bye.
Bye.